So B Lab, the organization behind B Corp, actually took out a post in response to say, hey, let's get to work. We can help you with this. And it was kind of interesting because it got 1.5 billion impressions. It's the most they've ever gotten before. And B Lab's phone was ringing off the hook because of all these CEOs going, we don't know where to start. How do we do this? So that was pretty incredible as well. So the momentum is there. We'll see how much these CEOs actually follow up on that. We'll have to see what happens there. But it's very interesting. And the final thing I want to mention is Danone. So Danone is actually one of the largest B Corps in the world now, and they have a big commitment to becoming B Corp certified across all of their organizations globally. So I think they have, it's up to about 87 different entities under the Danone umbrella. And right now, I think they have, I think it's around 17 B Corp certified companies in that mix right now. And that is so important to them that when they negotiated a really large syndicated loan with 12 global banks, they said, you know what, we want a condition in our loan that says the better we do good, the less we pay. Which meant that they wanted to increase the amount of B Corp certified companies they had to prove that they're really concerned about environment, social, and governance and improving on that. And if they do that, they'll pay less interest. And all 12 banks agreed to that, which I thought was pretty groundbreaking because you had like HSBC, which is not known for its sustainability, and you also had Tritos Bank, which is only lends to sustainable businesses in that mix. So that's pretty powerful that they all agreed to that. And I hope that we're going to see more of that, that within looking at just financial statements, we're also going to look at, you know, how are you balancing everything within your organization? So with the movement we're going to talk about today, B Corp, one of the most important pieces of it, it is about people. It's the people behind the businesses, the entrepreneurs that really make the difference. And we're going to hear from two live ones just shortly here. Now, Ethan is with Frank & Oak, a Canadian business out of Montreal. And Ethan sort of hangs with all the sustainable fellows. So, you know, Patagonia and Tom Shoes and Eileen Fisher. These are all kind of his mentors. And about 2.5 years ago, he thought, I'm going to become B Corp certified just like you all are. But it was a bit of a rude awakening because he really felt he was quite sustainable and that he was doing really cool things in his organization. But he came in pretty low on the assessment. And you have to score 80 out of 200 points. And actually, it totally shocked him. He was like, whoa, I didn't expect this. But what was most impressive about Ethan is he didn't give up. He wanted to actually achieve this for his organization. So he started looking at it in chunks, improving on his packaging, improving with his employee practices, improving in all sorts of different ways. I think he uses about 8 different sustainable fabrics now, which is pretty incredible. And just a couple months ago, he became B Corp certified, but it took him over 2 years. But he was that committed. So I always like to tell his story because sometimes it's not easy, but it's worth it in the end, because he really feels it has improved his business, the process. So we're moving from talking about just good products or good processes like ISO or good buildings like LEED. We're moving into talking about good overall businesses. Because even if you're growing certified organic apples, but you're not paying your staff to actually harvest them, that's a problem. We want everything to be good within the organization. And so when we talk about impact and purpose, that's what I'm thinking about, is having a good, balanced organization. So who here has actually heard of B Corp certification? Okay, good. That's good. Yeah. So there's 3 steps that you all know about. Now the first one for me is still that the entrepreneur has to have that mindset. He has to, or she wants to, operate a business that, you know, is thinking about impact and purpose in everything that they do. That's super important. It's not something you can fake. So don't even think you can. It's too hard. So number 1, commitment. Number 2, scoring 80 out of 200 points on the B impact assessment. And number 3 is changing your articles of incorporation to consider all stakeholders. Okay? So if you do those 3 things, you can actually certify. This B impact assessment that I talk about, it's completely robust. It's amazing. B Lab has spent a long time creating this assessment to make it rigorous and current. It's currently on version 6, and the last version, they incorporated about 8,000 different pieces of information into the assessment. So for them, it has to remain current and relevant, not only in Canada or the US, but globally as well, because this really is a global initiative. So this most recent one is really reflective of how we're moving forward. One of the examples is the workers section used to be called the employees section, and it only considered your full-time employees. But now it considers all workers that work with you, whether they're on contract or part-time, for example. But it looks at each one of these areas in detail. The score was set at 80 because 80 is hard. When they first did this assessment, they went to over 2,000 businesses, and what they found is an average business would be under 50, but a business that maybe had a nice CSR report every year over here that nobody reads, it may come in around the 60 to 70 mark. But businesses that were really doing it across the board came in at that 80 mark, and that's why 80 is hard. I know it's not 50%, but it's still really hard. Now, the legal framework, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I did want to let you know that right now in Canada, it's legal to get your shareholders on board and go to your lawyer and say, we would like to change our articles of incorporation to consider all stakeholders. Easy thing to do. It can be done in any province without a problem. But in the US, there were some states that actually couldn't do this. It was illegal to consider anything but shareholder return, which is quite interesting. So one of those states was actually California. And that's why Patagonia, for example, one of the most sustainable companies in the world, actually couldn't certify when B Corp was first brought to life 11 years ago, because they actually couldn't change their articles in California. So what they did was they actually created a new type of company called the Benefit Corporation legislation. And you could actually create a company that considers all stakeholders from the get-go. So this was actually so popular that it's now in 37 states in the US, whether they could or could not change their articles. And what they found is this movement was so powerful of creating a company with that intention that they're sitting at about 7,000 benefit corporations in the US and 1,200 certified B Corps. So they're just doing the first step. Does everybody get that? The legal change? Cool. So in Canada here, we've really talked a lot about it, whether or not it would be useful to do that in Canada. And a group of individuals in BC actually got together and tabled some legislation last year, and spring of last year, the legislation passed in BC. So you can actually create a company now, a benefit corporation company in BC. It's not quite ready yet, it'll be another 6 months, but I'm curious to see what will happen. Now in BC you can also just change your articles as well, so you'll have the choice, but we'll see how that takes off in Canada here. It'll be interesting. So these are some familiar benefit corporations. And I'll just talk quickly about multinationals because it's happening more and more. Of course, Unilever has made it a goal to purchase B Corp certified companies because they know they're very good investments. They've purchased, I think, 7 so far. Campbell's purchased Plum, and we go down the thing. So basically, Campbell's and P&G, maybe not the most sustainable companies, but they do recognize that these are good investments. Gap actually certified their Lululemon brand, Athleta, which is only available in the US last year. So that was kind of exciting, and they've actually been so vocal about it. It's in their storefronts and everything, so they're a great addition. So in terms of multinationals, up until a year ago, we actually couldn't certify a multinational. So in January, a new B impact assessment was launched that could actually certify a multinational company, because it's complicated. They got a lot going on. Now, with that, they had a cohort of 12 multinationals that helped to create this new assessment, but only one was even close to certifying. So they have a lot of work to do, and it is a journey, but a lot of people are actually jumping on that bandwagon. So publicly traded companies, quickly, Natura is an interesting story because they're one of the largest organizations in Brazil. They employ almost 80% women. Incredible, or anybody who lives near there knows who Natura is. They're publicly traded, a B Corp certified company, and 2 years ago they purchased The Body Shop. And they purchased The Body Shop and immediately said, you're becoming B Corp certified too. And a month ago, The Body Shop certified, which is really exciting. The next thing that Natura did was decided, okay, we're going to purchase Avon. So they just purchased Avon, and with the intention that they'll have them certified as well. So huge organization that's really pushing this forward in everything that they do. So those are some examples of what are happening globally, what's happening in the B Corp movement. And I think what I would like to move on to now is, I should mention, there's 3,100 now in all of the world, in 71 different countries, and of course 150 different industries. So it really is a global movement that's really growing fast. Now, this is always what I like to leave everybody on, is that everybody in this room can be B Corp-ish. Because that B impact assessment that I always talk about, it's completely free, online, available to any organization, it's confidential, and you do not have to certify. You can just use it as a planning or a strategy document. And I highly encourage that you do, because there is so much to learn in there. It is embedded with tons of tools and resources, example policy and procedures. It would benefit anybody in this room. So please, you can go to bcorporation.net and take a look at that. So I think it's really important to hear from different organizations. I can always share you my view from BDC, but I would love to introduce Jillian from Ian Martin Group to come up and share her story about her organization and why she is a B Corp.
Thanks, Carla. So, afternoon, everyone. As Carla said, my name is Jillian, and I work for the Ian Martin Group. So we're actually a national staffing agency with offices in the US, in Canada, and we actually also have an office in India as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I work on the sales side of our organization. We have an office here in Calgary, but I'm also chairing our committee for. We've just started. Right now it's like more of a meetup, but it's the Be Local group for Alberta, which is a little bit confusing with this Be Local. But basically what that is it's a gathering of B Corps in Alberta in order to support each other and to share that collective wisdom that comes with being a B Corp and being a small business and being entrepreneurs, and how do we work through all these different things. So just a little bit about us and our journey, Ian Martin's journey as a B Corp. So we have been around for a while. We're a bit of a interesting story because Ian Martin's been around probably since actually like 1957. Our head office is in Oakville, Ontario. So we're a staffing agency, a recruitment agency. We recruit for engineers and IT, and so when I say staffing agency, I know sometimes there's not always the best connotations that are associated with recruitment firms or staffing agencies. So we're a family-owned business. So when our current CEO and owner inherited the business, just based on his own personal story, he took a look at the business and he was like, we need to make this more meaningful for people. We are a recruitment agency. We provide people with work. Work is an important part of people's lives. It is fundamental to people's lives. It is vital. And so how do we connect people in meaningful work, and so that they enjoy coming to work every day, that they want to come to work every day? And so that is our mission now, is to connect people in meaningful work. And so part of that was the B Corp certification. So we certified in 2012. And for us, the B Corp is, so I know there's a lot of organizations that do great things and corporate social responsibility and all those things, but for us it's this very cornerstone, fundamental, centering piece to why we do what we do. And it dictates a lot of our other actions in terms of how we treat our people, how we source our different supplies and different things like that. We're more service-oriented rather than product. And there's definitely room for improvement. I know, so Carla was talking about when the minimum score for a B Corp is 80. So the first year that when we finally certified, we squeaked in at 84. It's higher now, I promise. It's in the hundreds now, but it's this growing process. But that's the beautiful thing about the B, is it's this thing, like I said, it's this cornerstone that keeps you accountable to all your stakeholders and say, hey, we want to be better, we want to do business better. You mean a lot to us as a business. And so we use that to dictate a lot of our actions. So, like I said, we have an offshore office in India. So I work in our Calgary office. There's 2 of us in our Calgary office, but there's actually 14 of us on our team because there are 12 other recruiters who I work with in India on a daily basis. And they are fully part of our organization. I know sometimes people you hear these stories of offshore workers and it does not go well. But they're fully part of our organization. We traveled, a few of them came to visit us this summer, and we went to visit them. And then another big thing for us is governance. So we recently started this journey. So just keeping in mind, those, I think it was the 5 criteria that Carla had up there earlier. For us, community, workers, and governance is a big thing. So from a governance perspective, we actually made the movement to become teal this year, which is basically, this is some organizational principles, but basically teal is there's no managers. We're a self-managed organization, which is a crazy journey. I would love to talk to any of you about that, side note. And we're still on this journey. But the beautiful thing about teal is that I know that I have as much say in the organization and the decisions that are made as an employee than as higher leadership, or what would be considered the VPs of the organization and stuff like that. And so when we have different processes around that, we have decision-making processes. We've read a lot. People in our organization have read a lot of books around that. And then the other piece is our workers. I've talked about our workers internally a little bit, but externally too. So with a recruitment agency, we work with contractors, which the contract world can be a very unstable world sometimes, and so sometimes it can be hard to be a contractor and not have benefits and know that you're on a year contract and you don't know what's going to happen after that. And so we try and help our people to feel as cared for as possible as an extension of our workers and as our employees. So parts of that is we have an entire team. They're called our contractor success team. So they are dedicated to servicing our contractors, to helping them. So if a contractor is hey, I wasn't paid, and it goes off into the abyss, we have a specific team who is oriented to that. And we also we've also started, we call it the Meaningful Work Volunteer Program for our contractors. So each year our contractors go and they can we provide them with funds to do a humanitarian trip of their choice. So we just had one that came back from Cambodia with Habitat for Humanity. So she was helping renovate houses, and another one, he just came back, this organization in Peru called Light Up the World, where they built solar panels in remote villages in Peru. So all of that to say, for us, the B, I think There's a lot of, I think 3 things I would talk about in terms of like why the B is so meaningful to us and being a B Corp. And I think the first thing is, like I said, like the accountability piece. And the second is that piece of it being a cornerstone and dictating all our actions. And then the third piece is like what Carla talked about earlier, is like how much it impacts our people and how we work and how our work impacts those around us and the environment and everybody else. Because we are not in a bubble. We have so much impact on those people around us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Hopefully that was an interesting example. So the next speaker is Christine from SureCall, which is another really interesting example and not maybe an organization you would think would be B Corp certified. So, Christine.
Thank you, Carla. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. B Corp has been an exciting journey for our company, but I'll kind of start in the beginning. In 2016, I should introduce who we are. My name is Christine, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development for SureCall Contact Centers. We are a contact center based here in Calgary, Alberta, and we do have a global reach, working with clients in North America as well as globally. We've actually been in Calgary for about 36 years. But in 2016, our organization made a pivot really to become a purpose-driven organization rather than a profit-driven organization. And what that looked like in 2016 to us was making an impact and a difference on the volunteer level. So our organization decided to make 2% of our profits, top line revenue profits, as a donation back to not-for-profits of the choice of our clients. So it became kind of a program driven for our clients, to engage our clients in giving back to the community where they were located, whether it be local, internationally, globally, wherever they were located. That whole piece of it became what we called our Good Call program. For those of you that don't maybe know what a contact center does, we're outsourced customer service support for companies everywhere, omni-channel, from phone to web chat to voicemail to email to supporting them on the customer service side. So we entitled this the Good Call program, and the Good Call program allowed us to make our employees feel that they were contributing back to something greater than just answering a call for our clients, because we were donating 2% of those profits back every year to the not-for-profit organizations. So we called that our Good Call program. And as you go through our organization, everybody within our company knows and lives and breathes the good call, because when they take that call for a client, or when they answer that email for a client, they know it's not only doing a good job on the call, but doing good with the call. So that became our first step in what was the pivot of our organization to really be more purpose-driven. And that was only the first step. From there, we wanted to really look at ways that we could be sustainable, ways that we could be inclusive, ways that we could reduce our carbon footprint. So many initiatives came into play from the Good Call era, and that was we became a paperless organization. We decided to reduce our carbon footprint in that way. We became an organization, we moved into a LEEDs building because that was important to us to have that environmental sustainability piece of it. We also initiated what we call Volunteer Wednesdays for our employees and staff. And they can go out and volunteer any Wednesday with pay through the organization for a cause that is important to them within the community, whatever community they're involved in, because we do have workers across Canada, about 120 here in Calgary and another 50 or so across Canada. And so that became one piece of it. And then we looked at all the pieces of our organization, not really having done the study yet, but breaking these down piece by piece of what we need to do to be that purpose-driven organization. And it just wasn't giving 2% of our profits every year. We knew it was a lot more than that. So the other piece we looked at were the wellness of our employees. So what can we do to not only keep those employees healthy, happy, engaged, purposeful, but what can we do to make this an organization that was going to attract employees who wanted a greater purpose? And like Carla mentioned, with millennials and the generation coming up now, it's a fabulous quality I see in the millennials, because they do want to make a difference and they do want to be with an organization that has a greater purpose. So we looked at the health and wellness piece. So we established fresh fruit in our offices for all the employees. We have a quite amazing gym facility. I think, Jillian, you got to see it, where we have employee workout programs. We have personal trainers that come in. We have a massage therapist that comes in once a week to give our employees massages. We have a meditation room. So we put a lot of thought into the wholeness of the employee piece of it. And then in 2017, our CEO became a Harvard Fellow and really looked at programs that would be corporate social responsibility pieces. So she went to Harvard and established a program called the Hero Girls Program. So the Hero Girls Program has become a part of our organization, and it is educating women in underserved countries. Just recently, we have a program going on right now in Nepal that we fund wholly through our Good Call program at Sure Call. And this program in Nepal allows girls in underserved countries to become entrepreneurs, go through entrepreneurship training and programs, and really just creating an effect that started out as a local piece that now is making an impact across the world. So with all those pieces in place, we naturally decided we want to certify as a B Corporation, because that fit with the model that we were trying to develop. And and looking at all the pieces of it, we felt we were ready to go through this process. And we started that. It took us about 2 years, actually, to make sure that we had everything we needed to get through the process. We just became B Corp certified about 6 months ago now, and we scored on our first certification well into the hundreds, and we were just named best in the world for our certification process. So, some people come in at different points in the process. Ours was a pivot, that started 4 years ago. The process took us 4 years to get to the organization that we are today, but it's always improving. It's always looking for ways. So now part of our program is not only within our organization, but any of the partners that we work with. We really look to them to be sustainable companies. So any sort of vendors or partners we have, we make that choice first, that they be sustainable and fit in with our business model. So I think it's a movement that is definitely spreading across Canada and across the world, and we are extremely excited to be a part of the movement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. So that's the formal part. Now you get to grill us and find out if this is really true. I'm going to give you this one. This one should come up nicely. Maybe. There. Just gonna. There. There you go. Most tricky part of the presentation were the microphones just now. So we really want to go back to those questions that you were thinking about, like what makes you uncomfortable and what are the opportunities. But also ask us lots of questions. That's what we're here for today. I find most people looking at B Corp, it can be a little daunting and scary, and we'd like to provide some context around that if we can. And so it's an open floor to you now. Go ahead.
Interested to hear about the organizational culture, the dynamic of moving towards a B Corp. What were some of the big wins where you saw immediate buy-in? Where were some of the obstacles or barriers that took some more to chisel
Sure, I'll happy to go first on that. So I think, it is, it's a process, right? And there's going to be people within your organization that maybe change they're not ready for. Change is always scary when it comes to anything within an organization, and there's always going to be people that have the buy-in and people that don't. But I think one of the most difficult pieces for us was truly becoming paperless as an organization, digitizing all of our information, digitizing the process, taking most of the printers out of our company. This was a massive change for us, and the world that we live in my company and in our organization is sometimes paper driven, and there are a lot of processes and a lot of proposals and things of that nature. And I remember we worked with a company that was a sustainable company that was in another industry that required 5 hard copies of a 300-page RFP be mailed to them, even though, they were a company that was sustainable. And so not only, working with our internal company, but our partners as well to try and explain that piece of the paperless and the carbon footprint to them was a process. And we're still working through that, and I think that was probably the hardest thing that we're still working with, right, and the challenging piece of that. We no longer print business cards. Everybody, if you meet somebody at a meeting, they said, oh, can you give me your business card? No, but I could connect with you on my text or whatever the case might be. So that, I think, has been the largest evolving process for us, and we're still going through that.
Yeah, I think for us, from like a culture perspective, because we were operating as like a more traditional business before. So I know when when our current CEO inherited the program, and and we started like making that shift, like there was a lot of like people left and people came, and it was just like a lot of craziness. But I think what's interesting, and even as I talk about our like journey on Teal, which is part of our workers and governance, which is huge, like to tell managers that you're no longer a manager, and to like it's crazy, and to tell like employees like you have a say, like that's hard for them sometimes. But I think so we've had some like turnover as well there, but I think the interesting part is with like the B Corp certification is like so many people like come to the company because they're like, you're a B Corp, like we want to be a part of that. And it's there are definitely millennials, but there's other groups to other demographics of people who are like, you're a B Corp, I want to be part of this. And so it's really cool to see how like with that B Corp, it's kind of almost in a sense like streamlining our culture so everybody, I mean, there's definitely differing opinions, and like different people will come and go, obviously, but like for the most part, people are starting to kind of like it's on the same page in a way. So yeah.
Great. Who's next? No more questions? Okay. Go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, so for us actually, so there's actually a body of research that says that B Corp helps companies improve their bottom line, and we've actually seen that. And so we are pretty shameless about our certification actually. So like we have like signs in all of our offices being like, we're certified, and like it's like on all of our job postings to candidates and stuff like that. But it's so we use it to market shamelessly, but like at the same time, like it also, I think, because people have this greater buy-in, like there's this greater purpose rather than, so like profit is definitely an important aspect of that, but because there's this bigger driver and like this greater accountability, like it holds people accountable, and so they want to continue to performing because they see this greater cause to move towards.
Yeah, for us, I think, you know, our organization has, you know, obviously we're new on the B Corp certification side of it, but we've made those changes along the way to kind of become that organization that wasn't necessarily profit-driven. And I think once you stop looking at that profit line every day, it happens. And I think it's because a few of the factors that are important and which are extremely costly to an organization, and one is the turnover, right? The employee churn hits organizations very, very hard. And if you can create that environment where your employee turnover is a lot lower, that is a direct impact to your bottom line immediately, right? Because that's a huge cost to us in the training and those piece of it. And I think healthy employees is another piece of it to us that's, you know, reduced our costs because you don't have the people calling in sick as much, and you don't have these things that you think are small impacts to a company, but really impact your bottom line as a whole. So I think, you know, and then companies that want to work with companies that have that purpose-driven component has helped our bottom line. And so once you stop looking at the bottom line improves.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I've been in business for over 30 years. I've owned 3 businesses, still I'm part of a business. I've lent to companies, consulted to companies, and now do this work. And so I don't know if I could totally get behind this if it was just all about heart and fluffy puppies. Like, that's not going to make a difference to an entrepreneur. It has to make good business sense too. So by treating your employees better, by having a better relationship with your community, by knowing your supply chain, all of those are wins for your organization as well, not just improving the overall outlook of your organization. The other thing I always tell people if they're going through this is that it is not about being perfect everywhere. You know, nobody's perfect, and you'll have areas where you really shine. And lean into those. Don't change something just so you meet the assessment and it means nothing to your organization. I don't think that would be good business advice for me to give, right? So really use that assessment to measure what matters most to you, personalize it, and then improve on the things that are going to matter to your business, to, you know, your external partners, your internal stakeholders, you know, to everybody. So that's always my recommendation on the bottom line. And they'll finally say that there was actually just a really good article posted about Patagonia. It was Yvonne actually was interviewed. If you go to my LinkedIn, I did share it because it was so good. And he talks about how it just, everything that they've done has just made their business even stronger and more profitable. And he actually cried the day he was a $1 billion company, because that's not what he had intended. He's like, wait, I'm making too much money. This isn't right. So, but everything that he did actually helped. So I thought that was a good article if you're interested. Next. Sure. Here first and then there? Okay, go ahead.
One of the things we've talked about here at the forum is the whole idea of the uncertainty, you know, and the whole aspect of the challenge that we're facing here in Alberta, Calgary. I mean, how have you, you are a national company but with a strong Calgary presence. How have you found that? How have you found the last 4 or 5 years here in Calgary in terms of being a B Corp and also with the challenge that we're facing as a city?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've all been impacted by those challenges, I think, and there's not one company here that can say they haven't been impacted by that. For us, the advantage has been picking up some really, really talented employees who maybe didn't have an opportunity elsewhere, and, you know, who, you know, we've been working with a lot of universities and local organizations to, you know, talk about their employees and what they could expect going out into the marketplace, and I think educating them on the different options that are out there. I know it's a lot of doom and gloom right now, but I think there's a bright side with, you know, what's going on with some of the other movements in the B Corps, and I think it's giving people hope and opportunity to see there's other avenues in Calgary to pursue.
I think that, I mean, to be honest, I think B Corp has a huge role to play in helping, like, Calgary with the economy. It was interesting because, and I think it's, sorry, I'm backing up. I think that's because, like, they're so focused on this holistic approach, that they want to help people and they want to, I think they're a factor in terms of like helping the local economy as well. And even to, like, I think the support that B Corps provide to each other is also super helpful, because it, like, having a collective wisdom and knowing you're supported as an organization is really helpful to, like, keep going in an area that's like there's a lot of like uncertainty right now. Like I know even, so we had like a Be Local meetup in Edmonton, and we were coming up with ideas like needs and opportunities and things like that, and like people had started this wall of like what I need, what can I offer, and like just like matching those two up. And it was so interesting, and I think so Be Local kind of, or B Corps show like how we can work with each other and help other organizations, like other small businesses, other social enterprises, and move out to those larger organizations. And I think too, just like from, so like personally, like working for a staffing agency, like I work with contractors every day who I'm like, and yeah, like hiring them and like unfortunately sometimes laying them off, but I think because we are not just driven by the profit that we're making off of those people, we actually genuinely care for our contractors. And so it's like, how can I help you and how can I support you in this and provide you with hope, even though this is a very uncertain time. So, yeah.
Another great example of that, I mean, I know we have Tim coming tomorrow, so I don't want to steal what he's going to talk about, but Chandos is more than 50% employee owned, which is a huge benefit if you're going through the certification. It gives you an instant 40 points simply because of the value that that creates within the organization. So Chandos is a traditional construction company, and they achieved B Corp certification. And they've told me, I know I've had lots of conversations with Jen, that through the downturn, all of the employees were trying to find them different work, different opportunities. They diversified and went to other companies or other cities. They were very quick and proactive, and everybody at the organization was working because they were so engaged. And I think that's a really good example of why it's so important. If your community is suffering, everybody's engaged and gets together. If we see more organizations like that, how powerful would that be? That's incredible. And that's really what we see from, I always say B Corp certified, but really organizations with purpose and impact, that's always top of mind for them. So that's what I see anyways. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
This is zooming out a bit, and Carla, this is maybe more directed towards you in your role. I imagine with B Corps you get this really rich data set with all these assessments coming through, and you get to see across these different criteria where are there strong trends, where are successes, and where are there challenges. And I'm interested if you have some insight into where across these thousands of companies are you seeing easy traction? So where are those low-hanging fruit where people can quickly make an impact? And where are kind of the bigger challenges where across maybe in certain areas of the criteria you don't see as many companies scoring high? And what does that mean?
Yeah.
In terms of transitioning to sustainable business?
Great question. So because I do B Corp 101s across the country, we also offer something called the Impact Six-Pack in Vancouver, where we spend 6 full days with a company and help them get to B Corp certification ready. We don't certify. That's always going to be within B Lab. But and because people share their data with us as well, if they actually enter the assessment through our link, it's been super helpful. So based on that, what we find is actually a lot of people have a lot of trouble with their governance. So they don't have strong mission statements, they don't have strong commitment, they're not really sure how to speak to their client and speak to their employees. So everybody's a little bit all over the place. It's like herding rabbits kind of a thing. Once they go through that process, their mission and their values are so clear. So they're able to communicate them so clearly and say, this is who we are and this is the value we create. And I can't tell you how powerful that really is. So that's one big thing. And then you also do that internally to all, your employees and everyone at the same time. So that's one of the things I think people really learn, which is interesting. But even from our Impact Six-Pack, a lot of people know who they are at the end. They came in going, oh, we know what we do well, we know what our impact is. And by the time they're done, it's actually changed. It's really fascinating. So I think the process really helps with that. I think it really helps with your employees and, of course, your workers now, because you will have really tight policy and procedures on absolutely everything, and which will allow you to attract and retain employees and also keep them engaged because of everything. I mean, some of the unique programs that they've both talked about, that's what B Corps are actually up to. They're always doing cool things. Like a B Corp in Vancouver does the Happiness Project. So at the end of every day, they're saying how happy they were, and they track that for 2 years solid, not for performance, but to find out, like, where are you best suited, what are our clients like, and they were able to identify clients they're going to charge more for. They were able to move people into positions where they're happier, just the endless amount of benefits there. And I do find companies that are in this space of that B Corp-ish kind of thinking, they are way above and way ahead of most companies in that respect. They also really focus on diversity and inclusion and how incredibly important that is. You saw that in the speech this morning. I would expand it past women to, beyond just women. I think we have to think about lots of other things in that context as well. But a rich, diverse board of directors and employee pool really creates a dynamic that you'll miss out on if you're not thinking about diversity and inclusion. That's another area. One of the harder ones, I think, for people to deal with is the environment, because if you're just leasing space, it's easy. That's no problem. But if you're a manufacturer, or you have a really detailed supply chain, you've got to do a lot of work around that environmental piece. It can be really challenging. And sometimes that's where people have to actually get outside help to get through that. But most companies find that there's a tremendous value if they're able to get there and actually improve on that. I also think it's like future-proofing your business, because I think we're going to see new policy and different things come down the pipe where you've got to be ready for that with your organization. So it's almost an investment in the future. So, I mean, I can go on, but those are the ones I really see are important to any business, and they make a lot of sense, and usually those are where you're finding the most impact. So, does that kind of cover it?
Is there maybe a follow-up to that? Is any of this going into like a policy development process, this information that you're discovering? Because I imagine you can see the value that's generated.
Yeah.
How that feeds into decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, BDC itself has a full advisory board, an advisory wing that tackles all sorts of business issues. So definitely, they always lean in to where we know Canadians are having the most difficulty. So there's that aspect, but embedded in the B impact assessment, there are examples, like basically every question is equipped with explain this. So basically, why is B Lab asking this question? And then there's an in practice, which says, okay, this is an example of how one business has actually put this to use, and you can go to their website and see everything. And then there's also policy links as well. So for example, all of the diversity and inclusion work that we've done over the past, it's almost 4 years now within the B Lab community, is an actual formal policy and procedure manual that anybody can use. It's open source, for example. That's been something called the Inclusive Economy Challenge. And so every B Corp in the world has committed to sort of improving on certain pieces. So all of this information, as it's gathered, as it's co-created, is actually embedded into the B Impact Assessment. And that's why it's so robust. So there's tons of examples and resources within that.
And one thing I did want to mention on the diversity and inclusiveness side of it, that was another piece that we looked at in our company, and we actually stopped looking at resumes about 2 years ago. We don't want to know, race, religion, background, anything, because we're looking at the merits based on a profiling software that we use. So everybody, when they apply to us, is sent a link for this profiling software, and they go through that, and it matches them with values, core values that are in line with our corporate culture, and we feel these people are going to be better cultural fit for us. So, our organization looks so diverse and in so many different backgrounds, but, it's incredible how just stopping that one thing of looking at a resume, so all you people out here in university now, don't do resumes anymore. Because I think, that's an important piece of being selective with the people that you have, are people that are going to be that natural cultural fit.
You've done a lot of work around that,
Yeah,
too.
so we also have we have a lot of different pieces, but so when we have people who first apply for internal positions, there's I forget the acronym, I forget the exact name, it's also a software, and so it takes your whatever position you've applied for, it takes your work behaviors and your adjusted work behaviors and aligns the two to show, the resume is there, but typically speaking, people who are hiring within our organization will look at that assessment in terms of how do your natural behaviors and adjusted behaviors match with the profiles. We also do top grading, which is a 3-hour interview, which is a set of behavioral questions just around the values of the organization. So not even technical skills, but just behavioral, and how do you match the values, and what is important to you, and how does that match with our organization. And then with our contractors, it's a little bit different, obviously, because we're hiring for clients, but really like to take the time to work with the clients to figure out what it is that they're looking for, and also work directly with the contractors too. So we do a lot of coaching with our contractors before they head into the interview, just based off of hiring criteria from clients, just to make sure that they're ready and that they're fully equipped to be able to enter into that interview and get that role. So, yeah.
Yeah, in my experience, honestly, most of the people that are on this journey or have purpose and impact in their mind with their organization, they're probably the most innovative in Canada. They really are. They're challenging every norm and saying, how can we do this differently? And for me, that's true innovation, and I experience that every day as I meet these entrepreneurs across the country. So, yeah. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I'm interested in hearing scale. When are you too small or too large?
Sure.
Too large?
Yeah.
B Corp. You might have some experience.
Absolutely. So, part two?
Yeah, would be relative to, is it just not-for-profits or for-profits, or
Okay.
is it not-for-profits as well?
Okay, I can answer that. So you can start at any time using the B Impact Assessment. Even if you're a startup, you can use it as a guide to build out your policies and procedures and kind of give yourself a roadmap. But you do have to be in business for at least 18 months because you need your first set of financial statements. And you can be anything from a sole proprietor all the way up to a multinational now. It's different, of course, if you're younger and you're more nimble. So if you're smaller, you can change a policy overnight. At BDC, if I want to change a policy, I wanted to change procurement 6 years ago, and we just changed it about 1.5 years ago. Because those decisions aren't entirely up to me. I'm not that powerful. So it means that there's lots of different people in our organization that would be interested in that and then push it forward, and that's exactly what happened. So now we have a procurement policy. It's so nice to actually have that now. But that took a long time. So large organizations tend to have harder time fixing things. There's also a caveat in there when you start your work on this and your journey to B Corp certification. Some things you can write a policy, there, I've got another 5 points, right? You just write the policy and you put it intact. Other things, you might have to write a policy and then start to measure. So it could be 2 years before you can actually start showing an improvement. So there's policy questions, outcome questions, input questions. So it really depends. So it does take a while. So start the journey early. And if you're in a position where you've been with the company for a long time in both these cases and you start your changes, it's just a little bit more complicated because you've got to sort of take it in pieces. Nobody has just, can dedicate a full day to these kinds of things. So, so you can start at any time. It has to be, you have to be a for-profit company to certify. Nonprofits cannot certify. The founders, when they came up with B Lab and B Corp certification, it was to really change capitalism. So that is what it's really focused on. However, many, many nonprofits use the assessment to help guide them as well. So it's a value to it. So there's no exclusions on who can use the assessment, but for certification, you have to be 18 months old and a for-profit business. Yeah. No more questions? So who's going to certify? That's what I like. Just I like that table over there. They're really good. Yes.
About, what are you uncertain about, and what are you curious about?
Absolutely. And I think we've got lots of time for that. So did everybody get that? So what are you uncertain about, and what do you see the entrepreneur or the opportunities are, correct? Yeah. So talk amongst yourself, and then maybe right before we're going to call time, we'll have some different tables share, if that's okay. All right?